All right, let's start with a really big question. When does the human heart actually break? Is it, in the middle of a crisis, when you're under some incredible pressure? Well, the answer might not be what you think.
There's this quote from the manga Pumpkin Scissors that just hits so hard. It suggests that the real damage, the thing that truly shatters you, doesn't happen when you're in the thick of the fight. It happens later.
See, the heart breaks in that moment when you've used up every last bit of your courage just to ask for help, and you're met with nothing, a cold shoulder, or worse, you get the Japanese phrase "Shouganai," which means it can't be helped. It's this systemic error, this declaration that the system literally has no specification for you. I've seen that moment play out more times than I can count. And that, right there, leads us to the core question we're wrestling with today. When a system itself is creating this level of despair, where does the blame really lie? Is it on the person who's struggling, or is it on the structure that failed them in the first place?
So let's talk about that struggle. Because so often, people who are pushing back against a broken system get slapped with a label. They get called problem cases. But what if that whole label is just completely wrong?
You see it all the time. On the front lines of welfare or business management, you see these behaviors: rage, lying, even self-sabotage. And it's so easy for society to look at that and just judge it as a moral failure, right? A flaw in their character. But is that what's really happening? This is where we have to totally reframe our thinking. What we're often seeing isn't a moral issue at all. It's what's known as a fight response. It's actually a completely logical and sometimes necessary set of survival tools. It's a barricade that someone puts up to protect themselves from an environment that's hostile or trying to exploit them. And that's the whole point, really. We're not looking at evil. We're not looking at selfishness. What we are looking at is a totally normal human reaction to a deeply abnormal situation. The problem isn't the person. It's the environment they're being forced to survive in. So if that first diagnosis, the label, is wrong, how do we fix it? Well, it begins with a process that honestly looks a lot like a financial audit, but it's an audit of a person's life. If you've ever seen the movie Good Will Hunting, this line is just unforgettable. The therapist Sean just keeps repeating it to Will until he finally breaks. But what's happening there is so much more than just a comforting phrase. It's actually something really powerful and, well, clinical. That statement, "It's not your fault," it's not just consolation. It is effectively a clinical audit report. It's that moment when a therapist or any support system looks at a person's life, their personal ledger, and starts correcting the books, reassigning the debt of blame that was put in the wrong column all along. And this table just shows the process so perfectly. The traditional way of looking at things focuses on an individual's symptoms, right? It treats their guilt like a personal defect, a debt on their own account. But the system of empowerment approach, it's different. It uses a double entry method. It examines the interaction between the person and their environment. And that death, all that suffering, it gets correctly reclassified from personal defect to environmental failure. And the result? You get your self-worth back. And what comes out of this audit is a core principle, something I call structural innocence. It's this simple but absolutely profound idea. Your suffering is not proof that you are weak or flawed. It's the logical, predictable result of a system that wasn't built for you to succeed. You're not bad. The system is just broken. Okay, so if we accept this idea of structural innocence, what do we do about it? What's the mission? Well, it completely changes the goal from just passive help to, well, active empowerment. This slide really lays out the contrast, and it's so important to our mission. Our goal here is not charity. Charity is about comforting the wounded. It's an act of sympathy. We are aiming for something that looks a lot more like war reparations. That's about restoring a person's ability to fight for themselves. It's not sympathy, it's justice. We're not here to just provide aid. We're here to distribute weapons. So our mission really boils down to 3 things. 1, to guarantee the rights that are already supposed to be guaranteed in our society. 2, to get people back to a state where they can fight properly on the battlefield of life. And 3, to distribute those weapons, which are rights, so they can actually push back against these ridiculous, broken structures. Now, this isn't just some nice philosophy. This is an engineering problem. This mission needs tools. It needs a whole arsenal. And that's exactly what this channel and the system behind it is all about building. So the name of this channel, d-rel. What does that even mean?
Well, the D stands for words like decode, define, disability, and document. It's all about analysis. And the REL? That stands for reload, restructure, relevant, and relative. That's about taking action and rebuilding.
All of this work is centered on building and researching a framework called the System of Empowerment, or SoE for short, and its fundamental purpose is to provide the tools to get that mission done, to empower people, to help them get their rights back, and to make sure they own and control their own data through the whole process.
And the way we're approaching it is incredibly concrete. Our research is really built on 3 core propositions. First, we need to prove the causal link between things like self-esteem and literacy and having better outcomes in life. Second, we want to use AI to break down these huge, complex problems into smaller, solvable parts. And third, we have to implement technology that gives individuals total control, sovereignty over their own data right from the very beginning.
All of this research, every single one of these ideas, it all brings us right back to where we started, looking at the ledger of your life. But now we're not seeing it as a record of your failures. We're seeing it as an invoice. So I want to leave you with a final empowering question. If your suffering is a debt, and that debt is owed to you by the system, how are you going to collect?